Okay. Hello, I'm Elaine. Welcome to Simply Draw. And today we're going to tackle a cardinal. So get your scrap piece of paper and your pen or your Sharpie. No pencil. You're not allowed to do any of your sketch work with a pencil. And just while you're getting organized, I'll get organized and we're going to begin. So, okay, I showed you the picture in the bird book, but I also have a couple photographs of a cardinal, which I took, and it gives us an idea of how thick the bill is, how wide the head is, how big the body is, and the length of the tail. So as long as we duplicate these key features and put the black in on the face, we should have a pretty good good idea of a cardinal. It might be a crappy picture, but it'll be a crappy cardinal. Okay, so let's start. And as you know, I always like to begin at the forehead. So let's just get your pen and paper and let's get going. We're just going to do a small forehead, and we're going to blend that up to the crest. And we're not going to worry so much about the hairdo, but after these loose feathers, what we want to duplicate is this thickness through the head, this very distinct curve that comes at the back and then blends down through the shoulder and along the wing. And this curve here really gives the impression of the thickness of the bird. Now let's go back to the face. We're going to leave a space for the bill, and we're going to do the throat. And that is a small curve that actually goes in a little bit and then directly out around the shoulder. And there's loose feathers there. And I think we should stop just like this, because we have to make a decision about whether or not we're going to put in the peg that the bird is perched on, or a branch, or something. But I think what we should do is put a branch across the front of our bird. So that's always kind of like nice and simple to draw. It feels productive when you get the branch in there. Now we can just continue on with the outline of the bird, and what we want to do is taper down to the tail. And for most pictures that I've looked at of different birds, this V of feathers blending into the tail is very common. Almost every little birdie has a birdie bum that looks like this. So when we come down, and here sometimes with different birds the wings are big, and you can actually see wing feathers here. So, but that's not the case here. So we can just blend this down and go directly into the tail. Now on this side, we've got a leg that's going to come out here. Some of the body, see, it's screwed up a little bit, but that's okay. We're not going for anything that's going to be framed. And right now I think it's a good idea to not worry about finishing the bottom of the tail, because we don't know if we actually need to have it longer or not. So I usually don't finish off the tail until I look at the rest of the proportions of the bird. Now let's go up and try to do this bill. It's very thick, so we want to make sure that we have a bill that curves down somewhat and then back in to the face. because of the way the bird is tilted, we actually see a lot of the thick bill that comes around like this, sort of, but not really. Now, proportions are all wrong. You can tell that just by the way the bill's been put in, but so what? We'll see what we can do to fix it later. Let's position the eye, and because of the way the head is tilted, what we'll do is we'll put the eye maybe about here, and remember to leave the white dot as the reflection of light on the eyeball, and we'll just leave that in like that. So now you can see that he just needs to be filled out a little bit. Okay, we won't do too much fussing, but what we will do is go back and do this distinctive black marking around the bill and the eye. So this is where it's important to pay attention to details in the photograph, because we've got this band and the eye is surrounded by the black. So we'll start by doing our band across the nose, and then we go up around the eye, and then it doesn't really do too much around the back of the head. There is that line where the feathers are distinct. We come back on this side of the eye and around the bill, and it's almost like he's wearing a little napkin under his chin. It's not, the black doesn't go down onto his breast. So this here is pretty good. Remember to leave a small white border around the eye, just to make it pop a little bit in your picture. Okay. And now we can just sort of add a few distinguishing marks to polish them off. A little thicker through here. We'll worry about the leg in a minute. Feathers that go down that blend into the tail. And some tail feathers. And I think the tail should be a little bit longer. They have very large birds with a big tail. Okay, that's enough of a mess there. Now, we'll see how the toes are very thick and curving. Right, and because of the camera angle, they're really coming straight out over the branch. And you don't have to do all three if you don't want to, but it just sort of gives the impression. And if you're going to end up like shading this later or coloring it in with your kids' pencil crayons, you can just do some little ruffles, some shading above the foot, gives the impression of texture there and whatnot. Now, they do actually have long legs, and a lot of cardinals are comfortable feeding on the ground, and this is where you'll see them, you know, standing up and you actually see this length. So this little joint coming from the body, his little elbow right there, don't know if it's called an elbow, that is something, it's just a small detail, but because we're brave and clever and we're doing our practicing, we can put in that elbow on his body. So just enough to sort of give the impression. Well, that looks hideous. Anyway. And this is where you can always like fix up your branch later to either make sure it goes underneath and through the toes and all that kind of stuff. I do that often actually, because I do have so much trouble drawing the legs that I'll actually draw the foot and the toes, and then I'll draw the branch through whatever I've done. All like tricks. See, this looks awful. It's too thick and whatnot, but anyway. So there you go. Brutal job on our little cardinal. Let's see if we can do, now they're not red all over, so it's, you know, they're actually quite gray and tinted along their back, so all this here would be like a grayish, gray features underneath the red, and he's got loose feathers, and my Sharpie isn't working again, but you know, that's not too bad. I think the head is too big and the body's too small, so I don't know, maybe that's good enough for now. We could flesh them out a little bit and call it quits. Simply draw, simply make a mess. If you like, you can just put in a bit of a line for his bill, but I never really, sometimes I don't really like doing that. Just, it's a detail that ends up screwing up. Oh, and the paper's smearing my pen. Well, gosh, I hope you learned something, and I wasn't just wasting your time. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.